Hey, good afternoon. My name is Karl Murphy, the CEO of Get Spiffy, and today I'm joined by Addison-Lessing, our Director of Partner and Customer Success at Spiffy. We're kicking off a new series where we sit down with operators in fixed operations, dealer principals, general managers, fixed ops leaders who are building mobile services businesses. The goal of this series is simple. It's to break mobile operations down into how it really works, what decisions get made early before you start a mobile business, what goes right and what goes wrong, and how to de-risk those decisions in a new dealership, and then how businesses evolve over time into successful contributors to the overall dealer rooftop success profile. Today, we're excited to be joined by Jeremy Stevens from Bozard Ford Lincoln in St. Augustine, Florida. Bozard has been a leader in adopting and scaling mobile service over the last few years, and Jeremy's had a front row seat on that journey. Jeremy, we really appreciate you taking time to join us today.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having us. And of
Yeah,
course,
thank you.
we all love talking mobile.
For sure, for sure. Um, hey, to get started, could you share with the audience like your brief career history and how you found yourself at Bozard?
Yeah, so I started, I was one of those guys that never did good in school and stuff like that, and found myself at a full service gas station in the 90s, and just really it kind of, cars was the only thing I could do. And kind of transferred there to a dealership. And then, from those dealership relationships, I moved to another one and met a used car manager. And eventually he bought a store, and I was the first technician he hired. And then he kind of saw something in me that I didn't see, and he asked me to be a service manager, and I turned him down several times because it's like, why have that headache? And from that point, I was with him for 20 years and became, service manager and a service and parts director of one store, and then an operation over 7 locations from them. And then how I got into Bozart was I met Ed Roberts through some, settings like this, talking leadership and automotive world. And I was at the point I was looking for a change, and he called me up and asked about mobile service, and I was like, I don't know, that just seems different. And then he told me, he said he wants to have 46 vans on the road, and and from his view, nobody's ever done it before, and it's like, what, that seems like a challenge. I like that. And came down to visit Bozard and just instantly fell in love with the place.
Yeah, it's interesting. And your arrival at Bozard was just before Bozard engaged Spiffy, right? I mean, it was pretty coincident, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was like probably about 6 months in, we kind of figured out kind of the lay of the land, and it's like, okay, we need some software at this point. The spreadsheets were busting at the seams.
Yeah, that's right. I remember meeting one of your service advisors who proudly showed me over 3 monitors the amount of spreadsheets she manages on a daily basis, and my heart rate went up and I got a headache looking at it. I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, you make this work? She's like, every day. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we did
We're,
that up to
we're,
about 24, 26 vans, and then it's like, yeah, yeah, this is too much. And the communication center was like, hey, we're getting lost. Everybody's getting lost, and that was tough.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, so for the audience, give everyone just sort of a high level of what the Bozard dealership looks like. Car sales, used sales, quick lane, fixed ops. Like how big is that? I know, and it's a big, outstanding operation. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows sort of what you guys run down there in St. Augustine.
Yeah, so usually we'll sell anywhere from 700 to 800 cars a month. Um, we do right at 5,000 ROs a month through our service department. Not only we have mobile service, but we have a quick lane, we have a main shop, and we have a fleet. We actually got a whole team just on fleet side. We also have a what we call a BTI, Bozart Technical Institute, that we actually have a training facility in there, and that's kind of like our second shift. So 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they have 2 hours of class, and when the day shift's over, we have 4 trainers that go out there and train a whole like 20 students, and they're there till midnight. Um,
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
so so definitely a pretty cool thing going on at Bozart, and through that technical institute, we pretty much grow our own technicians through that.
Yeah, that's super strong competitive advantage for you in 2026 when it's so hard to find so hard to find technicians, and it's really hard to find great technicians who show up, do good work every day, and can smile and all those sorts of things.
Oh yeah.
Um, how do you measure success in the mobile business today? Like on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, like what's the measure for like we're winning, we're losing, or we're sort of treading water?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can measure, and sometimes you just get kind of numbers overload basically. But we look at a couple of different things. Of course, we look at gross profit. And one thing I hear a lot is like, oh yeah, Ford gives you all this money. So yes, it does make sense. And that is nice because we can actually use that money to help pay for a lot of our stuff to get it started. But what we track is just overall profitability, just like it's its own business. So we look at mobile strictly with mobile. We don't put the money that Ford gives us into the financial piece because we want to make sure it can stand on its own two legs. So our first thing is just the profitability of it with that. So that's one of the things we look at. And of course, we always look at CSI. CSI usually don't have an issue in mobile. You get pretty much perfect surveys every time. But then also from a van level, the number of ROs they see on a daily basis to see if we're, maximizing opportunity in vans. And it can go down the list, our technician productivity, the advisor's
Right.
productivity, and all the base. But we're looking at it from an overall picture, and we have some targets in place. We're a little different because our first goal was to relieve our shop capacity because, probably a year and a half ago, we were 6 weeks behind in getting it into a shop. And it's hard to sell cars and keep a business operating when you're that far behind.
Right.
And probably 3 or 4 months ago, we can do same day or definitely next day appointments because we've helped that piece. And now what we're measuring now is our fleet business. Now we're transitioning to the fleet stuff.
So a year and a half ago, the wait time for fixed stops, like traditionally I come in and get my car serviced, regardless of what it was 4 to 6 weeks. Is that what you said?
Yeah, if you
And
had to
now
go to our main shop with an AC concern or a check engine light, it's like, hey, good news, we can see you in 6 weeks. And yeah, that's hard to keep customers happy when you're that far behind, and you're
right.
always struggling. Everybody's a little stressed because they're overworked and trying to work special ones in because they're broke down with kids, and
Mhm.
it was tough.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And now you're transitioning to addressing your fleet customers. How do you think about impacting the fleet customer experience with mobile?
So that has been, fleet customers love it to death because not only we're doing a lot of the maintenance and a lot of stuff right there on their spot, um, but then also again when that fleet customer needs an engine or transmission, now it's getting through the shop in a
Faster. Yeah.
fraction of the time as it did before because we're knocking out some other stuff, and we've been really pushing it for 3 months now. 4 months ago, probably I think it was 27% of business was fleet, and this morning it was 45%. And it's. I tell people, I say I feel like we're just getting started with mobile, just because there's so many different opportunities. And I was running to get to this call because I was at a networking event and I was talking to some people at this networking event, and as with 46 vans all over St. Augustine and the areas, people still don't know that we do mobile service.
Yeah,
It's
well,
something brand new.
it's interesting. Here's the quote, Jeremy Stevens, we're just getting started with mobile. 2,000 ROs a month across 46 vans. Well, it's interesting, Addison and I and Ethan, we talk a lot to people who are considering joining mobile. It's interesting. I had a meeting with a consulting company in the industry that you would be familiar with, and they told me they surveyed all, roughly 17,000, 18,000 dealerships, and it's their estimation that there are 965 active mobile businesses in the dealer world. And so it's like 4.5, 5% or something. And one of the biggest things we talk about to customers is there is so much demand. Like they worry about, oh, is the investment worth it? I'm like there's so much demand out there,
Yeah.
and we have to be, we like throttle it. Like we tell people something, and I'm like, are you sure about that? I'm like, look, the original number was like 10x that. We just don't tell you 10x because we don't think you believe 10x, right? And they sort of want to do 1x. And so it's so interesting to hear you. And look, St. Augustine is a beautiful town. It's like 20,000 people. Like it's not Metro LA, right? Or Chicago or New York City, right? I mean, the density of population is, I mean, it's a nice, small southern Florida, beach town, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to go far from the ocean and there's like, farms and stuff there, right? Which
Yeah,
is
it's like
nice. But
one minute you have civilization, the next minute it's like, man, I'm not comfortable out here in the country.
yeah, it's
But
like cows and gators, right?
yeah, but it's it's crazy. So even this past month we set another record, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and it's the first time because our fleet business is growing so much that we're scrambling to try to get stuff done.
Mhm.
And you talk, we have 46 vans, and I'm at the point now where I'm a day or two behind now, and it's like, and I'm freaking out because it's like, holy cow, it's like 2,500 ROs is not that far away if I have this much demand, and we're just getting started pushing it, going to
Right,
networking events, shaking hands, doing
right.
fundamental stuff that we should have been doing 10 years ago, really.
Yeah, so it's interesting, we spent a lot of time and Addison's team, like their whole mission is running our launch playbook, right? This blueprint for how do you go from zero, I have no mobile, to one, like let's get one successful, and then, two, and then three, and then four. And so what I hear you say is, a year ago you were basically like 70-30 consumer fleet, right?
Right.
Like when we talk to companies, dealers, OEM, they're brands that are not like heavy fleet customers, right? So Ford, GM, Chrysler, Ram, they all have this fleet business, which I think, the folks that are not those three brands sort of like I think drool over sometimes. Like, God,
Yeah.
I wish I had an F-250 to go service, um, run by, some maintenance company that, put 55,000 miles on it before they decide to change the oil and put new tires on it, right? Like you love that business. Um, Tell us about how do you think about acquiring new customers into the consumer business? What do consumers like? What are the services you're offering them? This is always a big question. Like, tell me about what are the first five services or the top five services that consumers are buying from you? And then, as you said earlier, what are the services they're raving about that make that mobile business so successful?
So we have a lot of dealerships that come by, and I always tell people to like start with recalls. It's not
Mhm.
like you're transporting a lot of stuff. You can do that very simple. You can go to Harbor Freight and buy a toolkit and a laptop and whatever, and then you're off to the races.
Yep.
And if a dealership says there's no opportunities in recall, that's a bunch of what, because it's like every manufacturer has enough recalls to keep a van busy.
Yeah, I think the
Or
last thing I heard was there were 78 million active recalls.
yeah, and it's just
78
and
million. It's like,
And you got dealerships complaining about it. It's like that's customers. That's
right.
customers that probably never been to your store that you can get them back. So there's a lot of opportunity, and that's where we started off was recalls, and then we started doing oil changes, and then you know of course oil changes, tire rotations, and that's pretty much what we started with, and then we started adding some brakes to it because what happens is when people asked about our fleet now, sometimes I'm kind of hesitant because it's like, hey, I'm just letting you know we didn't start by doing AC work and check engine lights and all this
Right.
stuff. It took us a while to get to that point. And pretty much now we got capability of doing a lot of stuff, a lot of heavy work, especially with the fleet side. There's just so much
Mhm.
opportunity on that side. Um, but yeah, and so I had to tell people, it's like, hey, listen, just do oil changes and recall. I said, once that vehicle starts you're doing about 3 or 4 a day, you're doing a great job. And it's
Yeah.
like, and that's how you figure out your broken processes. Just fix all your processes, and you can really start to see how you can scale this.
Yeah. Interesting.
Even the manufacturers that says I don't have fleet customers, and I'm because we had a foreign brand dealership come in, and I'm sitting there looking at your vehicles. Most of your filters are topside. And I was like, I would be drooling over these little bitty cars in driveways. I was like, I would crank those out so good. I was like,
Right.
uh,
And they're charging twice what you're charging for an oil change.
yes, yeah, and they love it.
And the customer loves it. Yeah, exactly. The customer loves it. So give the audience some perspective from you on why consumers love mobile. Like what makes them excited? Like, I mean, you go to change your oil, fine. I mean, you change your oil and they can come to your quick lube. They can go down the street. Like there's a lot of like discussion about bleed into independent shops from the dealership. Like, why is the customer, like you said, it's like if I do the service, I get a 5-star rating,
Yeah.
right? And so
And it's pretty
why are
cool.
they that way?
It this is the first manager job I've ever had where I have more customers email, call, and even send letters over their experience with that. And it's a couple of things. Of course, it's the convenience of it. The last email I got, it's like this is the best thing. I actually emailed the owners. It's like this is the best thing ever. I'm sitting sipping my coffee in bed while they're out there changing my oil. It's like, okay, that sells itself on that piece. But also when you have a technician, we have shielded technicians in the dealership for so long. It's like, hey, put them in this dungeon back there, lock the door, don't let them talk to customers. And what I've learned from this doing mobile is customers craving to talk to somebody technical because not only you have a Ford Master technician in your driveway, there's always that one thing that you're really not sure of how it works on your car, or you had a weird question, and now you got this direct access to a technician that can tell you everything about your car. And I'm hearing stories. It's like, hey, I set this Bluetooth up, or I had Jenna, one of our technicians. She was working with a husband that just lost her wife, and he says, "Can you please help me because everything's programmed in her old phone and stuff like that." And she spent 15 minutes, and it was the best experience ever. And then what happens is my technicians come back, and this is the coolest thing ever. They start bragging about how great these customers are. It's like, hey, Karl was awesome. He had cool motorcycles in his garage, and and to me, that's the most amazing thing to hear from a technician, that we have cool customers.
Yeah. Well, it's so exciting to hear you say that because one of the objections we get from dealers who are in the decision phase on do I want to go mobile is, it's hard enough to find technicians. Where do I get technicians? I'm afraid of putting the guy in the driveway. What if he spills the oil? There's all these issues. And I said, it's actually an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to extend your brand to their front door. I said, look, your sales guy cannot knock on their front door and not get yelled at.
Yeah.
The technician, they're excited to see the technician come in and knock on your front door and say, can I have the keys to your car? And I'm going to clear a recall, change the oil, put some wiper blades on, whatever it is, right? And then, you know, your team has done such a good job of developing talent that you just have this, wealth of like awesome humans. And I think there's all this conversation about artificial intelligence and e-commerce and and the upside or the opportunity, again, one of the things I come to realize in selling software to dealerships is I'm an entrepreneur and I'm sort of a disruptor. And dealers have been like doing things the same way for 100 years. And I have to realize that I'm from a different world. And generally I look at things like what's the opportunity here with this? There's this fact, right? And the fact pattern is you got to send technicians to the house to do mobile, but there's this huge opportunity, put a smiling face out there and have a human interaction. And it's not Bozard Ford, hey, I bought an F-150 from them and some guy over there sold it to me and, truck's awesome, right? You get to see the technician come out and then have some sort of conversation, and it really just humanizes what's in most of the world is being dehumanized, right? And so the upside of mobile is really humanizing your brand and putting it in the customer's driveway. Again, you guys are great at that technician recruitment and training. Tell the audience or share sort of like what are the top 3 or 4 things a mobile tech needs to have for you before you put them in a car or a van and send them out to the customer.
Yes, we look at a couple of things, and the first thing is the first interaction on the phone, because you got to understand, like we require technicians to reach out to our customers. I love software. I'm a technology guy, but I still like the human touch on that piece. So if they sound crappy on the phone when you're talking to interview them, chances are he's not going to be the guy.
Right.
Because you got to look at, there's the face of the dealership. There's no dealership around them except a van. But we always try to find people that has this servant attitude. And they generally love people and want to see them happy.
Yeah, they're
You know, they're
smiling on the way in. If they're not smiling in the interview, they're certainly not going to smile in July when it's 96 and they're under a car changing oil, right?
no, not at all. And this past week it's been pouring down rain, and our guys, they're still relentless. They're still knocking out 100 appointments in the rain, and it's like, but yeah, and a couple of our success stories is like one of my main ones is probably 2 years ago he was out there servicing pools, like this home service business. Those guys, they're already used to talking with customers and selling stuff, and if they're kind of good with their hands and mechanical, you can train them to. You don't have to train them to be a master technician. You train them to do the fundamental, the process of changing oil, and
Yep.
and everybody knows that's pretty easy. It's like you can put them in your shop for about a month or two, and then you can tag them along with somebody that you trust on the mobile to see if that customer side is experienced. So a lot of our training stuff is when we get somebody from our quick lane, he'll do anywhere from a 6 to 9 week ride along with one of our seasoned guys, and we have this training thing that you got to check all these boxes to be kind of turned loose, basically out on your own. Um, and there's a lot of people out there. It's just we're always focusing on: are you a master technician? Can you turn hours? Um, we're looking at it from that, and a lot of my majority of my not majority, probably a lot of my technicians, they didn't make it in the main shop, and it kind of has this mental game that you have to overcome. And with our pay plan on mobile, it's a little different. It's more a little structured where there's some performance bonuses, but it's a totally different vibe, and they win in those areas. It's like,
Are they paid hourly, Jeremy?
yeah, a lot of our guys, it's almost like it's a salary, but then there's some performance bonus based on their
Salary plus
hours.
bonus.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you got a
Salary plus
salary.
bonus.
Yep, and that seems to work with our guys. And if you got some heavy hitters, those are like my fleet guys. It's like, okay, they want volume, and you can work with those. And then I got some guys that they're not the high performers, but I can give them a heat case, or hey, I need you to kind of have a little bit more love on this guy here. They can solve any problem out in the field for you. So it's almost like you got to work with what their strengths are, and figure it
Right.
out on that piece, and still be profitable also.
Hey, so let's transition back to the dealer side. So I know you host a lot of dealers who are considering mobile or have small mobile operations, and they want to see what you guys are doing. And you're incredibly generous and hospitable when they come out. Brand, regardless of the brand, they don't have to be Ford customers, right? I mean, you host all
Yeah.
sorts of folks out there. Um, uh, when they come and talk to you, what do you see as like the biggest misconception or the place where they're looking at the wrong problems, or they're worried about the wrong things when they're getting started? What do you see from those visits that you see?
So it's a little mixture of everything. And this Chevy dealership that really stood out the most is because I tell dealerships, if you want to see a lot of action and interact with my technicians, you got to be here at 6:45 in the morning. And some of them can take me up on that, and some of them don't. And and
But
and
mobile starts early.
and and I remember this one is it's like he had some hesitant of because he was wanting to grow mobile himself, and he just didn't think it could be possible. But I remember him standing out in the parking lot, and you could just tell his whole mind was opened up, almost like, yes, that's exactly what it was. He was almost speechless. He's like, yeah, because when you see the vans move around, and then when he starts asking questions, he realizes it's really not that complicated. It's really, you do a lot of little things, but you just gotta make sure you're following the process, and and everybody just overthinks it completely. Because they always ask for the silver bullet, and I have to explain to it, and Ed has this, like, there's really no silver bullet.
Right.
Um, it's people and processes, and where do you want to go with it? This is the vision, and make sure everybody's engaged in it. But the first part is just believing it is possible. And a lot of it's just a little technical stuff, like parts. Parts is always a hot topic. It's like, we got all these vans. How do you know what part goes on what? And it's like it's pretty much working in the future of everything. And once they see the process of it, it's like, oh, okay, so it's really not that bad. So I think they go into mindset. It's like, yeah, it's going to be too complicated. It's not worth us even attempting this. And then they realize it's like, oh, okay, so that's how you do it. It's not. It's just everybody's overthinking it, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Like I was talking to one guy, I'm like, parts, it's like, it's oil and filters, dude. Like fill the tank up. You have a brand, you have like three types of filters in that brand, correct? He's like, yes. I said, okay, well, you need six filters on a truck.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not that hard.
And,
And so
if
it's,
you run out, which is going to happen, just go bring it to them.
yeah,
Because it's
go,
like everybody's like, "What if this happens?" It's like, well, what if your quick lane leaves a drain plug loose and it leaks in their driveway? What do? They said we
yeah.
clean it up. I was like, that's what
Let's
we
do the
do.
same thing. Yeah. Don't unscrew the drain plug. Let's start there, right? So here's another question we get from dealers who are considering mobile, and they're sort of, okay, we're gonna go. We have the vision. Now they're like, what kind of assets? We call them assets, right? What kind of van or vehicle do you use? How do you think about that? You have a big fleet, so it's different for you at this point. But if you were starting your mobile business, or if these new to mobile dealers come, how do you talk to them about assets and where to start and what to do, and how much to invest and all that sort of thing?
So so when I came about 2 years, 2.5 years ago to Bozart, there was probably four different types of van. We had the little bitty transit vans. We had the transit van that are single wheels that really wasn't equipped with a lot of stuff, and then we had dually vans that were fully equipped, and then we had escapes. And if I had to start all over from scratch, if I had to buy a new van, it would be more of where it has the oil capacity and it has the tools and everything, where it kind of can do a little bit of everything. Um,
It's like a general purpose maintenance van.
yes, that has the bulk
Maybe,
oil tanks and everything with it. It's a cleaner operation. It's pretty much streamlined because we had a little mixture and we had to be creative to do what we do in some of the vans because it wasn't equipped. And I get asked, is like, why don't you put bulk oil tanks in it? It's like, well, I'd have to do it for 26 vans, and that could
right?
be expensive.
Yeah.
So that would be,
Karl,
if
give me a quote. Karl, give me a quote for that. It was expensive.
it's like you might as well just wait to buy a new van. Um, but anyway, so that would be the perfect scenario because that way still cheaper than real estate, still cheaper than building one bay in the shop.
Right.
But I do have some dealerships that I hear this they just do recalls and they do perfectly fine. They just find
Yep.
a sedan car that's very good on gas and throw a laptop and some tools in there and they're off to the races.
That's nice to hear because that's the advice that we offer to them. Like, look, if you're capital constrained or if you're unsure about the vision, you know, let's find an SUV thing, in your brand, whatever sort of is the Ford Escape for your brand. And let's plan on doing recalls, right? And we've
Right.
we've sort of created some scaled down versions of our oil change equipment to put in those vehicles so you can go do five or six recalls and a couple of oil changes and get started. It's interesting. What we find is then those people get pretty frustrated pretty quickly because there's all this other business coming in and like, oh, we can't fit all the parts in the cars. I'm like, well,
That's what we
there was
ran
like
in. That's what we ran in with the escapes. So we started with the escapes that it's like, okay, we can do diagnostics and recalls with it. And in the first week, it's like, well, now the technician upsold an oil change. And now we're routing another van to it. And it's like, this
yeah,
just seems
tomorrow, right? I guess
yeah.
we're gonna move our whole fleet through that cul-de-sac by the end of the week. By the time we get
Right.
done with it, right?
Man, and that's what you're going to find out if somebody does try to do the recall. Like you said, you're going to miss so much opportunity. You're not missing it. You're just having to use resources to pick it up when you could have done it in that one spot, based that one time.
Let's transition to Addison. For the listeners out there, Addison-Lessing runs our direct, he's the director of our partner and customer success team. So his team launches new customers, right? They configure the software for your DMS. They make sure that every, op code that you want to run mobile is set up. And then they help implement what we call our 6-point, 90-day blueprint to success. And so Addison, thanks for joining. Why don't you talk to Jeremy? You have an intimate knowledge of Bozard because you're working with them now and have been. Help the audience understand what's going on down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Addison, don't speak of the truth because you work with my team, so keep it nice.
Listen, Jeremy, the first thing I was going to start with was, my first visit to Bozard. You weren't joking, okay? We texted each other. I think it was the day before. You said, "Hey, I get here at 6:30," and we met right in the parking lot that morning. Walked across the lot, and I walked in. And I'll tell you, I was just a little overwhelmed at the insane operation you guys run out there, and it was a fantastic experience. And I would say before now, I'm not sure I've had the privilege and opportunity to hear how you got involved in Bozard. It reminds me very much of my experience at Spiffy. Karl will tell you, I started as a technician, and at some point, he was like hearing me talk to a customer. He's like, "Okay, put that guy on a phone and like get him, and have him talk to
That's
me."
exactly what happened.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was like 5 o'clock on a Friday and the phone rang and Addison just picked it up and he answered. And I was sort of like, why is the technician talking to customers? And then he's like, God, that guy sounds really good. He solves a problem. He takes a note. He looks at me. He's like, hey, can I tell the customer we'll be there tomorrow? I'm like, yes, yep, for sure. He's like, okay, what do you need? Yep, phone number. It's just like, completely untrained ad lib. I would call it a B plus, A minus performance, right? And this is at 5 o'clock on a Friday in July in North Carolina. Addison has taken 110 of his pounds and dropped two of them in water in the last 3 hours, right? And so I was like, we need him out of the truck and put him at that desk.
yeah. It was a great experience, and I'm so excited to be doing something like this with you guys right now. And I think we can say it's been an absolute pleasure working together. A couple things from my side that as I've been working with you guys and talking with you, that what I'll ask you, this one comes up so much as I'm working with dealers. How did you price mobile versus in store, and how did that sort of evolve over time, if it did?
Yeah. So in the beginning, what we did, it was the same price as it was in the main shop. And we have since then just started. You don't know the value of mobile until you start seeing what you could get for it, basically. So what we did, we took a couple of oil change of price and we just bumped it up like 25% to see what happened. And the only the only people that were freaked out about it was our own employees, basically. And I think from that whole experience, the volume we do that first month, 3 people complained. Um, and if you look at the history, you could tell that these are the coupon shoppers, and those are the ones that you always had issue with. And it's like, yeah, that they complain if you gave it to them for free, basically. Um, so what I do tell people, mobile, the good thing is Ford's been a great partner in mobile service, so they help offset a lot of that stuff. But if they didn't, we would probably go a little bit more aggressive with a mobile menu pricing. And everybody here is like, you hear Uber Eats and stuff like that. They'll tack like $10 on a Happy Meal, and people are fine with it. I mean, people in our shop do it all the time, and it's like, man, it's like doesn't make sense, but it's convenient.
It is.
So there is I believe there is some room for opportunity on that part of it. And across the dealerships I work with across the nation, some people do use escalated menu prices, and some of them actually charge a fee for it. They charge anywhere from $40 to $60 for a mobile service fee, and they're a well-performing dealership.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I hear a lot of. I have dealers on both sides of the aisle who are pricing it as a separate fee, who are including it as their sort of package labor off price. So great perspective from your side. And I'll ask you too, I'll kind of give you two more to kind of work with is when you guys really started scaling, you came on at sort of that midpoint where it was right before that precipice of like, we need to explode in growth. What did you know to start to break as you grew, and what did you guys have to sort of solve in that growth pain?
Yeah. So a lot of the pain points is you have to be willing to change very often. There was a inside joke about me that's like, don't get too comfortable because everything changes in 4 hours with him. And it was jokingly said, but it's very true, because what you think works last week, you're going to find a whole new scenario. It's like, oh, shoot, why didn't somebody say this wasn't working 2 weeks ago? So it's the ability to listen to your team, to identify issues and stop the bus, and not push it down the road. Just go ahead and solve them, because we have 48 technicians that are scattered all across Florida, and they need help. And it's not like you can holler at the guy in the bay beside you, So one of the things we had to do was have team leads that could field some of these phone calls. to help walk them through a lot of the diagnostics and just little hang up or like I'm struggling with this or whatever. So there was a lot of stuff we had put in place for checkpoints, and it was always evolving, and to this day it's still evolving. We tweaked some stuff just this week because the process that was there 2 months ago just doesn't work now.
Well, and that's funny. There's like an internal running joke at Spiffy that there's like, we have a different measure of time, right? Where, what we said last week, okay, well, it's this week now, and we have a new problem ahead of us, right? And so now there's something different we're talking about.
It's dog years. Every year it's 57 years of your other life.
It is, yeah. Don't ask me what happened a month ago, right? But so look, I know, and I appreciate you taking the time today. So I'll close this with one last question, and then I'll close us out here, which is if you were to give advice to dealerships getting started in this mobile service business today, what is the one, you mentioned a lot of metrics and indicators that you guys track. What would you say is the most important metric that any new dealer approaching this should be tracking the closest?
The one thing I always tell people is when they first start, don't try to do 4 to 6 or 10 in a day. I tell people, I was like, just do 2 a day, because you don't know what you don't know, and you need to work through the process before you really start pushing mobile and say, hey, we're going to jump out and do 6 a day, and your parts are wrong and nobody knows what to do. It's like, well, how do you open RO? So it's almost like I always tell people, it's like, just shoot for 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, and just realize you're going to have to build your processes around it. And once you get the reps in, you can start adding very quickly on that piece. And then my other advice is have somebody designated, whether it's a service advisor or somebody that can schedule. It's like, don't try to tack it onto it's like, well, he needs something to do. Let's let him do it too. It needs to be a standalone identity, just like Quick Lanes and anything else in your department or your store.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, and I couldn't agree more. The dedicated, someone to own this program is so, so vital. It is so important. If, the running joke for me, and this is the same for any team, and accountability, in my opinion, is if everyone's accountable to it, then really no one is, right? And then it stagnates and it doesn't grow the direction we need to because they have other jobs. But Jeremy, look, I really appreciate you taking the time today to work with us and talk to us today about your path and Bozard's path and how you guys have made mobile successful in the operation and the ecosystem that you guys have. Really appreciate all of the sharing that you had here and all the advice you provided to those that are stepping into the mobile service or considering the mobile service side. I'll give you sort of one last thing, anything that you would say as your sort of closing remark to any dealer that might be watching this today wondering, hey, is mobile right for me?
Yeah, I always tell people, it's like, you need at least one van. Just go ahead and do one van, because dealerships missed out in the oil changes and tires. I was back in there in the 90s when dealerships didn't want anything to do with tires. And then we actually created an opportunity for all these tire stores to open up all over the place. So I think it's going to be one of those things. It's like, you need to just go ahead and embrace it because your customers are going to demand it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Karl, anything else that you want to add today?
No, hey, Jeremy, I just want to say thank you from the company for your generosity to Spiffy and to the industry for how open and sharing you and Ed and your entire team are to help others be successful in their dealerships and their business. It's really it's incredibly admirable what you guys do, and you're so good at it. It's so exciting, I know, for me and for my team to be associated with such a high performing organization. Thanks for your time, and thanks for what your whole group does for the industry.
All right, I sure appreciate y'all having me on, and it was great talking to y'all.